controversial topic this evening, but it's also quite a fun one. And we're going to make it a bit fun with something quite different. So I'd like to welcome up a very dear sister of mine, a beautiful performing artist, an actress and poet and songstress, Marie. Please would you come up? Marie's got a beautiful poem for us about the very topic we're speaking about.
I've just been instructed to do this.
Yeah, so on the spot.
On the spot.
On the spot. So I'm going to hand over to you just to set the theme.
Many moons ago, I was standing in my sister's garden, and there was this hibiscus tree. Because it was a tree, it wasn't just a shrub. It was really a tree. And this hibiscus tree was full of flowers. Like blood red, huge, beautiful flowers. Like wine red. And I was just standing there in the sunshine. I was looking at this beautiful tree full of hibiscus flowers. And then all sorts of interesting things started happening. Or they were happening, and I've just started noticing it. Bees and butterflies, and it was totally such a... It was extremely erotic for me to actually witness this. So the muse came, and then if you're a poet and if you're a writer, you know that if the muse comes, you have to quickly write down what she says to you in that moment. So I went to get my piece of paper, and I wrote this poem out of the mouth of basically the hibiscus flower. So I am a hibiscus flower, and all of you are bees, and I'm addressing you. Okay. So while I take a sip, you can start bzzz. I just want you to, because the song is called Busy Bee. Okay. Thank you. Can you feel it? Apparently very close to a cello's vibration frequency. Okay. Busy bee, seduced by juice so deep in me. I called you with my fragrance like a song upon the wind, weaving sensual stories into the perfumed songs I sing. You're coming closer and closer now. I can almost feel your heat. My petals blush, then rock to the rhythm of your beat. Deep red intoxication, seductive invocation, pulling you, my VIB, to the sweetest part of me. Busy bee, seduced by juice so deep in me. I called you with my fragrance like a song upon the wind, weaving sensual stories into the perfumed songs I sing. Oh, your dizzy vibration, prickling and tickling, sucking and licking the cocktails I serve at this hot love station. You rub your legs against me, collecting honey from my soul. Then you fly away. And then you fly away. And then you come back for more. Busy bee, seduced by juice so deep in me. I called you with my fragrance like a song upon the wind, weaving sensual stories into the perfumed songs I sing. Oh, there comes a butterfly, also hungry for my honey. A high precision tongue rolls down and dips into my tummy. Tonight, at sunset, you will all be gone, and I will start preparing for tomorrow. A brand new sexy song. Busy bee. Busy bee. Busy bee. busy bee. Thank you. That won't be much.
I think that's what you call an icebreaker here. Thank you so much, Marie. So if you all behave, you might be lucky you might hear another one. It's a bit hotter, that one, though, so ease into it. Alright, so our speaker for tonight is Dakini Shima, who has been a very big teacher to me. And I'm also going to be sharing a bit of my own story with you tonight. So I'm going to start with that, and then I'll hand you over to Shima. But first of all, thank you very much, Shima, for being here tonight. And we'll give you a very big welcome, officially just now. But just to start the evening, so this is the first time I've ever stood in front of a group. I stand in front of people and speak for a living, but I've never stood in front of a group of people and spoken about sex before. It's quite an interesting place to be. So my spiritual journey started a few years ago. It's been a very accelerated path for me. And when it began, although it has been a number of years, I suppose, but it began very much in the plant medicine. The plants were what woke me up and really saved my life. And I was very drawn into the shamanic tradition and a deep love for the plant medicines. And working with plants, you know, there's a very beautiful Amazonian tradition, and there's a deep tradition of fasting and dietas and a lot of reverence for abstinence and celibacy when working with these plants. And in me, I had really dedicated myself very deeply to working with these medicines and had shut down all parts of me that were sexual, because my entire focus was on the spiritual path. And I mean, I had shut that down, to be honest, anyway, but my entire focus now had moved into plant medicines. And I was quite happy with that. This was cool, this was the way that I now chose to live, and I didn't see any need to open up that part of myself again. But the truth of the matter is that our sexual energy is our life force, and it's something I should have really realized or remembered, because a lot of my life I'd suffered from depression, and libido is the first thing to go when you suffer from depression. And libido, all the psychologists will tell you, is your life force. It's not just your sexual energy, it's your passion, it's your desire to engage life, it's your lust for life, it's your ability to taste it, to savor it. And from your libido springs your creative energy. So I'd shut this down in myself, and in myself I'd become quite judgmental towards sexuality and quite judgmental towards myself. And also I'd observed, that this was quite a common mindset, I think, in the plant community. And I mean, I can't say if it still is, but I think there's perhaps a bit of judgment towards sexuality as something to engage with when we are being spiritual. It's almost as though the two are not compatible. You can't be both. You can't be spiritual and you can't be sexual as well. It's one of the two. You've got to make a choice. And I was fine with it at the time, but we don't get to choose our path. Our path kind of gets to choose, it chooses us. And in retrospect, if I'm honest with myself, I think my tantric path had actually begun many, many years before. So I've got a very colourful life I've led, but if I look at it, I think every single thing I've done in my life couldn't have more perfectly prepared me for my path in Tantra, which opened up, and I went into it kicking and screaming. And hell no, I'm not fucking going into Tantra. Put on the brakes, because I just had no interest in this, and a huge resistance to engaging with that. And it was quite funny. It was almost like there was a presentience in me, because before I had even started to work with plant medicines, before I'd had this awakening, before I'd woken up, I went to Cambodia. And I just had to go to Cambodia for some reason. Why Cambodia, I can't tell you. And I had to go to Cambodia, and I had to go to Angkor Wat. So off I went, and I had to go to all these temples in Cambodia, and I had to climb up this mountain to get to this waterfall, at the top of the mountain where there was the river of 1,000 lingams. I don't know if anyone knows what lingam is. It's penis basically, which at the very top had a giant yoni which is a sacred word for vagina, which was the water was running over that, irrigating the valley. So very sacred, but totally tantric. And every temple in Cambodia was tantric. And it was sort of this presentient journey I'd gone on, and I didn't even know. And only now I can look back and go, okay, something was going on there. But to cut a long story short, I ended up going on this journey, and I had to face this sexual side of me. And I went kicking and screaming into Tantra, and kicking and screaming into engaging with and having to face the fact that I had the sexual nature. Now there's an Incan prophecy. What the Incans had to say was that in the beginning of time, this being known as God decided to experience itself in its multitude of forms, such as blades of grass, or dolphins, or trees, or elephants, and human beings. But in order to have these experiences, it had to forget who it was. So what we are is this one being in a state of forgetfulness, and there is only one. And in order to have this experience of being myself, I had to forget who I was, you had to forget who you are, and there is only one, and everything that we are seeing, everything we're touching is made of this one thing. Everything is sacred, everything is divine, everything is God. And when we start to work with plant medicines, we start to have these experiences where the boundaries of where you begin and end start to blur. And the interesting thing is that we've got a lot of, we may have, I think we've very much been conditioned in society to have these judgments about sexuality. But yet, what we're doing when we're making love to another person is we're worshipping God. Because each and every one of us is the divine expressed in each and every form in its perfection. And it's something I've had to understand, something I've had to realize inside myself and come to peace with. And it's interesting how we have so many judgments and beliefs, and sexuality is very much a shadow in us. But yet, I'm sure you've probably noticed that the most intense spiritual experiences are always blissful. And yet the most intense sexual experiences are also blissful, because it's also a spiritual experience. And sexuality, conscious sexuality, is when we can come together and meet God. And this is a journey I've had to go on, and I've had to go into the taboos, and I've had to examine that inside myself and shed a lot of what I believed was right and what I believed was wrong. And actually understand that even plants, by their very nature, are sexual. So thank you, Marie. I mean, that's exactly the point I wanted to make. In fact, I was hoping they would have had flowers in reception so I could show you a flower. And, I think we forget that. And I don't believe that the plants judge us. I don't think the plants really care what we get up to in the bedroom. I think that sexuality is nature, and we are part of nature, and we've forgotten that. And I believe that in order to walk any spiritual path with integrity, we have to accept what we are in all our light and all our dark. Because otherwise we have no integrity. And for me, I think the most grounding thing on the spiritual path has been dropping into my own body and understanding I am light, I am dark, but now I'm whole. Because I am sexual, I am all these things. And this is me. And for me, the only real meaning to this existence is to be in full integrity of the experience that is you. To be in full integrity of the experience that is you. Because if you are the divine expressed in this form, then all that you're here for is to experience this existence. And therefore, how can sexuality be wrong? It's part of you. And you're here to experience, you're here to express that. So it's a beautiful path, it's a beautiful journey. Conscious sexuality is beautiful. Tantra is beautiful. And Tantra for me, I believe is the evolution of mankind. It's the evolution of love. It is love. It's love medicine. And it goes very much hand in hand with plant medicine because it teaches us how to open our hearts, how to move sexual energy so it's not trapped in the bottom chakras, but so that we love completely and we move that energy and radiate it through our hearts. So I'm not an expert on this. I'm still a beginner on this journey. And I'm very grateful to Shima because she's given me something very beautiful with this introduction to this journey. So I'd like to hand over to her, and thank you. Thank you for letting.
Thank you, Elana. Thank you so much, my love. Beautiful. When I was feeling into what I wanted to share with you of this journey this evening, I met in myself so much resistance and fear to be here tonight. I'm not sure where it was coming from, but often what I find when I start feeling these emotions or this energy arising in me, I start to see that it's something that's in the field as such. Just having done a huge amount of work with the nervous system and realizing how much we share one nervous system. And we have our own bodies and nervous systems, but for our nervous systems to function, they need to be communicating with one another. And so when I felt this resistance or fear arising in me, I wondered what might be in this field around sexuality, what shame, what guilt, what fear, what judgments might be present in our bodies together. So I'm just curious if any of you have any thoughts about that. Like what comes up?
I've been listening to Tori Amos, the first album of hers. I don't know much, but it's a lot about being a woman and being constricted by males because they are the dominant sexual partner and not being allowed to express your sexuality in a Christian kind of society as a female and rather being punished for it. So I've been feeling a lot of anger around this specific subject, not because I'm like that, but because I see how women have been dehumanized in that way. And I'm against dehumanization, obviously. So
it's interesting you bring up the anger. I went to Woolworths in Rosebank. I go there and I meet people and I just chat to them and see what's going on because I don't watch television. And I met 3 black guys and we're just chatting, and there's this whole movement going on apparently because women are feeling really angry about when they express their sexuality they get called a slut, but there isn't an equivalent word for men. So apparently the women have come up with the word fuckboy. And the men are saying, whoa, the women are really angry this year. So I think there is that anger is present, and something of anger, of course, anger always comes when it wants to change in energy. Something wants to move, and it's a very powerful energy for us to be present with. So it's something to really invite into the body because it will bring transformation. Anything else that's coming up in the in the body, in the system, around sexuality, any fear, judgment, resistance. Resistance was strong. How do you resist your sexuality? How do you say no to it? Just think for a moment, and if anybody wants to offer.
For me personally, it's betrayal.
Betrayal.
Not wanting to hurt people that you care about. So you're willing to go and explore things, but you don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. But at the same time, you don't want to explain yourself because you are just being. So that's a difficult concept for me to grasp.
And naturally, if you can provoke the feeling of betrayal in someone, they can also provoke the same feeling in you. They could take similar actions to you, which then you would have to face those vulnerabilities in yourself as well. If they chose a similar being action as you're speaking of, just following your sexual energy and making love to someone different to your partner or something like this, they of course can do the same, and you could think you'd be alright with it, but in the moment you might not be. Betrayal, anger, anything else that's coming up?
I think there's definitely a lot of resistance, because if you look at the average turnout of our Quadruple talks and you look at how many people are here tonight, it's quite interesting that this is a topic that obviously scares people.
No, last year I offered a tantric facilitation training to this group of people, and some others. Elana came, and the week before the training, Elana fell ill. Several people fell ill. Someone actually arrived and at the training got so ill had to leave. Somebody was on their way, and the psychic phoned her and said, "Don't go." And she turned around and she left. And you know, I sometimes don't know anymore where people are at sexually. Like, I know where I'm at sexually, but I look into the world and I don't actually know. Is everybody just having a beautiful, healthy sex life experience? Or are our minds still really dictating to our bodies and informing our bodies how to be, how to experience life? So sometimes I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure where people are at. But when I saw that happening last year, and I feel that this group of people are very awake and doing a lot of deep seeker work, very sincere on their path, and still there was such a tremendous resistance to come in and doing the work of Tantra. And you know, if we go really back in time to where Tantra comes from, it's a very shamanic path. It's a path of the body. It's deep in the earth. It's deeply connecting to the Kundalini and to the Shiva energy. It's very deeply shamanic. So one would imagine that as shamanism rises on the planet, even in memory from our body, people will be drawn into Tantra. But if we go even further back, I just want to set up a little bit of what, for me, Tantra is really about. And I want to just say, anything I say here is definitely not absolutely true. You don't have to, you know, I'm not talking from a prescriptive way. I'm talking in a metaphoric way to try and explain something of our inner nature. So if we go into the story of Adam and Eve, and we look at the story a little bit differently. So how I see the story now, I see Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. They're not experiencing any separation. They're naked, they're enjoying, they're in bliss, they're making love, they're relating to God or the goddess. For me, in this instance, it's closer to the goddess because it's in nature. And then they get tempted to the tree of knowledge, and they eat of the tree. And when they eat of this tree of knowledge, a separation happens. They leave the Garden of Eden. They're expelled from the Garden of Eden. And how I see that, in that moment when they eat of the tree of knowledge, something changes. Suddenly the mind or knowledge becomes superior to being. It's like the ego is born. And they have to leave this place of being, of non-separation. And so, in a way, the story of Adam and Eve becomes a story of the journey of going into the ego, of moving away from truth, of moving away from a true nature. And if you look at what the ego is, we try to have a look at the very nature of ego. It's been described by many different spiritual paths in many different ways. And if we start to feel into the essence of it, we find that when we say no to something, no to energy that wants to come into our body makes a defense, it makes a wall. Eckhart Tolle talks about a pain body. And in the Chod practices of Buddhism, you can actually go into this ego body and you can see it as a being, a living being. So it's like the ego is made up of all the energy we refuse. Okay, so I've got some sexual energy flowing through my body, but I'm going to say no to it because I don't want to look like a slut. So there's all this energy coming through me. I'm saying no to it, and it forms like a wall around sexual energy. And in many different ways, we start saying no to energy, so we build an ego body. And then, as we try to reclaim energy again, we've got all these unconscious walls, and we don't even know how to navigate them. And so we take ayahuasca, and what happens? The guards we have in our system, the guards we have against energy. So in Carlos Castaneda's work, he speaks about the guardian and the guard. That we have a guardian in our system of our higher selves. A guardian that's here to facilitate our journey into this life, to facilitate the spirit of what we are into life. That's the guardian, helps to facilitate that. But this guardian shifts into a guard. And it starts to guard against the energy that is here to support us to live. There's a lot of energy that's right here all the time that is for us to live. But this mind has kind of got a bit out of control, and it creates guards and it pushes this energy away. So right now we sit here together and we kind of feel like we're separate beings. Like you are just there yourself, I'm here. There isn't necessarily an immense energy flowing between us. That's how it feels like. But we take ayahuasca, and suddenly ayahuasca somehow puts the guards to sleep. They fall asleep. And all those defenses we have around our heart, around our sex, around our belly, they disappear. And suddenly, in the medicine, you can feel this tremendous energy rising in your being, because you don't have the mind guards stopping the energy from rising in your being again. And so that energy can translate into different things. So people can have visions or insights, and all kinds of things can happen while in the medicine. But as the medicine wears off, we come back into life, the guards wake up. And so we move from this place of deep knowing ourselves, our true nature is energy. We come to know that, we feel it viscerally, we see it. And then we come back to life, where there's now, again, this aspect of separation as the guards wake up again. And so the work begins, and obviously in the plant medicine, the ayahuasca can sometimes give very clear direction about what steps you need to take for these guards to permanently leave your system, and for you to permanently connect with yourself as energy. But sometimes those instructions are very, very hard to follow. And then we have to deal with our minds. The last instruction I got from ayahuasca was, listen to your mother, which is not always an easy thing to do. So the guards come up again. Now, in Tantra, the transmission is a little different to a medicine plant. In Tantra, and if I can, before I even get into it, if I can invite you right now to connect a little bit to your bodies. Just connecting a little bit to your body, feeling yourself present. And in this instance, by body, I mean if you can connect to your sexuality. Feel how your sexuality is connecting down into the earth. How it connects into the Kundalini. The yoni is a tremendous receptive force of Kundalini. But just feeling feeling, including your sexuality in this moment, which is something we don't always do when we're relating to each other. So seeing if you can connect a little deeper into your sex, just feeling how the lingam is a tremendous giving energy, how the penis gives energy, how the yoni receives energy. Seeing if you can feel into the sex and connect a little deeper into the earth energy. Feeling that pristine presence that can happen when we connect sex and earth energy together. So in Tantra, we often see the medicine as the human being himself or herself. That we notice that every human being comes with a medicine. This intricate, vast mystery of human beings is a medicine too. And that if we're going to share our medicine as human beings, we work with transmission. So I can speak words to you, but the real medicine is happening in transmission, in energy, or the wisdom, or what it is you need to receive right now. And so in Tantra, we learn to bow to a human being, like a guru or a Dakini. And the bowing is not this confused idea of authority, that now somebody's going to tell you who you are or how to be or what to believe. It's none of that. It's when your head goes below your heart and you remember once again that the mind isn't in control of your being. That the being holds the vast wisdom, intelligence of this existence. And so your head bows below your heart. And when that happens, your bodies can open and you can receive this deep, ancient transmission that comes through these wisdom lineages. So this is more the way of Tantra, where we really honor the human being very deeply. And my Tantric journey began in 1999 with a master, a true master, called Shantam Nityama. And I was traveling through San Francisco and someone sent me to this man, which I dreamt about. And he's a black man, and I arrived at his door. And I was just come out of this apartheid South Africa, so I was really nervous, am I going to have sex with this black guy? And mostly in that session, what he did was he took me in his arms and he held me and he hummed to me. And just from that time with him, I dropped into a state of utter oneness, where there was no division in my body or mind or the moment. And that was my initiation into the Tantric path with Nityama. And somehow this man, and I can tell you, he's a mighty strange man. He's not a very palatable human being. And you have to wonder at this existence, how existence decides to give this man this energy and this mastery. So now he's 72 years old, and he goes into a bedroom with a woman for 3 days, and he doesn't come out for 3 days, and that he doesn't eat, and they put a green drink outside his door, which he doesn't drink, and he makes love for 3 days with this woman at 72 years old. So his energy is very, very, very strong. This may be the strongest I've met on this planet. And the transmission I met from him was just body to body, awakening something within me. So for that to happen, a tremendous amount of trust and surrender also needs to happen within our systems. Then I came back to South Africa and I started working with a guy called Rahasya in Tantra. And I worked a long time with him. And I found it very difficult to talk about this guru, because in a way, I drank too much of him. It's like when I think about him, I get a bit queasy now. It's like I overdrank this man. But I was working very deeply with him when I met my first initiation of Ayahuasca in 2005. And in a way, I'd been on a tremendous energy dieta before the Ayahuasca by working with Rahasya and Tantra. because the tantric energy, it cleanses the body. It just cleans everything out. So I came to ayahuasca, and I took ayahuasca quite a lot, and I never purged. I never felt any urge at all to purge. I just felt very clean in the beginning of ayahuasca. I've since have, but for maybe the first year or so, nothing happened. And I took this ayahuasca, and it was actually with Guy, the first time they came to South Africa, where I had this, and Bet and Anyo, and I broke one of their sacred rules. You're not allowed to have any sex before or during the dieta and so forth. Now in Tantra, a lot of our journey with sex is to undo any authority that's been put on you from the outside around sex. You can, you can't, you must, you mustn't. So all this authority that's coming from the outside, it's slowly to let it go. So in the shamanic lineages, when they start to say you can't have sex, blah blah blah, as a tantrika, you really question it. Even though I understood where they're coming from, that your typical physical sex is very depletive of energy, and I totally understood the direction, and I did actually follow it for the first bit. But during the dieta, I met someone on the dieta, and we made love, and I was like, okay, I'm breaking these rules. And it was a very tantric meeting. It was very shape-shifting, a lot of energy, a lot of dancing, flowing. And the next day we did our second session of ayahuasca in the caves, the Bushman caves. And in that session, it was like the day before, we had gone so deep into lovemaking, something had really opened in my system. And this is when the ayahuasca, or however it works, different flavors of orgasm started happening in my body for most of the ayahuasca session. Up till now, I've never experienced that degree of orgasm again. And I felt very strongly that the day before the lovemaking opened my body to experience that. And for most of the session, I just laughed and laughed and laughed, because here I am in Santa Daime Church and being fucked by the universe. And okay. So, and during that session, ayahuasca said to me, you need to tell Bet and Anyo to combine Tantra and ayahuasca. And I was like, no, I don't think they're going to be into it. And it said, tell them. And I said, no, tell them. And I was like, no. And then eventually I was like, okay, I'll tell them, shut up. And so I came out of ayahuasca and I told them, and they said, no, the message was for you. And I was like, okay. And slowly I started just to see how these two medicines really, really meet. And what I started to see on these spiritual paths in myself was that the journey is really a journey back into energy. It's back into knowing your nature as energy. And when it starts to open in you, it's very, very big. And people say you can go crazy. And I've known a few. When the Kundalini starts to rise in your system, people lose it. This is so big, and their nervous systems haven't developed enough to be with that much big energy. And so Tantra is about taking you back into the body so you can be with this kind of big energy. But the challenge that we have on this journey is we have these huge, open, expansive moments, and then we come back to waking life where everything shuts. Because if we're not prepared to really look into the darkest, most shadow places of our sexuality, all those guards, all those armorings, all those walls are just going to stay in place. And so I get amazed sometimes when I meet people that have done huge amounts of work in all kinds of directions except sexuality, and certain things will just not move. You can meet people who have done medicine, plant medicine, for 20 years, and they still have these profound confusions, judgments, shames around sexuality. And the thing is, we have really many different places where that body receives energy, but one of the key places is Kundalini, which is coming through the sex, and it's like the visceral Shakti, sexual energy, it's desire. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful energy, and it's rising up from the earth into our being. And then there's the energy descending, the Shiva, the more spacious, empty awareness, the no mind coming down. And eventually these two can meet in our hearts. And when these meet, this union happens, we start to really begin to know our own presence, or not even our own presence, begin to know presence as such. When these two are allowed, but if we refuse or we just cannot turn into our sexuality, then it's like, okay, we can receive these amazing insights, this amazing wisdom, this knowledge, this Shiva, the God energy, but we cannot say yes to the goddess. And this is like a deep, deep conditioning on our planet currently. We just can't seem to really say yes to it. And it's like we have these rings of armoring around our sex. And a great part of this is this incredible egoic identification with things like attraction and sexuality. We think it's ours. We think it belongs to me. If I'm attracted to someone or I have some sexual energy arising, somehow I'm responsible. And I don't see it like this anymore. It's like energy itself is a living, alive being that is what gives birth to stars. Attraction is this like magnetic pull that shows us where to move and flow in life. Of course, as soon as people feel sexual energy, their mind immediately naps that we must have sex, and that's not always how it's going to look like. It can look a bunch of different ways. And then how we have sex, yeah, that's a whole new chapter on this planet. And as I step into that, it's like, even to start to feel that, it's like stepping into a profound and utter mystery every single time. And part of my resistance to coming here and talking about sex is I can tell you I know nothing about sex. Even though I've been utterly interested in it for 20 years, and I have this profound beginner mind that whenever I walk towards sex, I come with not knowing and bowing to this teacher sex, this profound, magnificent teacher sex. And knowing I can never know the infinite nature of this being and what this night she will show me. And if I have grace, she will appear. If grace is there, she appears. And if I have grace, she'll show me the doorways back home into my being. And a few things I know or I've learned, or how to seduce, entice, invite, is that the thing of slowing down instead of rushing into, like slowing down into the body, like letting sex have her way, not my way or his way. How does sex have her way? How do we slow down enough that sex starts to really dance us, move through us, show us how to be? Letting go of all these ideas and shoulds. Yeah, because she really knows far better than what I could ever know. So for me, sex is a profound and utter surrender. And I have to really wait. It's like a waiting game. And sometimes it frustrates me. I can't imagine what it can do to a partner or beloved of mine when I'm waiting for the energy to rise so I can follow her into the mystery of my own nature. So it's this deep, deep slowing down and listening. And for some of us, what we might know about sex is it really happens in the pause. So you can be in quite an erotic space with someone, a hot, passionate space, like making love quite strong, a lot of movement, a lot of flow, a lot of like building the energy up. And remember, well, maybe you may not know, but most orgasm that people experience on the planet comes from contraction. We contract the clitoris, we contract the penis, we contract the anus, and then we come. So it's like a holding of the energy, making a pull, and then climax happens. But if you want to ride the energy, you want to meet sex as energy, You got to let go of contraction. You got to stay in the flow. You got to come back to the pause. And in that emptiness, when you're not reaching for something, you're not trying, when you're not attempting something, when you're not having some goal idea how the sex is going to look like, and you let all that shit go, and you just pause in the moment of all this energy that's wanting to flow through you. In the pause is when it rises, when it flows, and when it does very surprising things in your body and reveals many, many different energy pathways. And when it has a very powerful capacity to reveal and let go of guards. Because as our system starts to deeply relax, trust can happen, and the mind can have new vision. That perhaps I don't need to keep you away. I don't need to protect my heart. I don't need to judge my sexuality as perverse or wrong or taboo or slut or something like that. I can delight in it and myself and in you. So this is this potential. And the thing about the teacher's sex is it's teaching you all the time. It's teaching you right now. Like every time you have an attraction or a movement towards someone, whether it's a stranger or your partner, you face something in yourself. If you want to invite them to become closer to you, more intimate, or you want to invite them into some pleasure, you face something in yourself. Every time you feel rejected or you reject someone, every time you feel jealousy, and in Tantra we say the more green, the better. Because all of this is Shakti. All of these feelings have profound energy. So we're looking for the big energy. You know, if I was standing up here right now and accessing a place of deep grief in myself and sharing that with you and really feeling it, like really feeling it, you would be feasting on it. In the Mayan traditions, they feast on grief. And the gods, they say, give them your grief before they do something to make you cry. Because they want to feed on this grief. And so, again, another aspect of profound sexuality is be willing to feel everything. And in that willingness to feel everything, again, you start to step through the guards that protect, that false protect you from the big energy that is here to take you into your Dharma, where you live your true nature, where you live your true path. The big energy is here for that. So we want to feel everything. And when you slow down, you pause, you drop into your body, you drop into your breath. During a sexual meeting with yourself or with someone else, I don't know a better way to really feel everything, but feel everything and don't fix it. Don't try to fix your feelings. There's three paths. The lowest path is suppression of emotion. The higher path is transformation, where you transform, let's say, pain into pleasure. It's a higher path. But the ultimate path is transmutation, where you actually find the essence of what the emotion is about. And that becomes food for your path. It becomes energy for your path. So, I have a little poem I'm going to read for you. This comes from a woman who lived long ago. Her name was Sappos. She lived on the Isle of Lesbos, and she loved women as her practice of loving the goddess. By loving women, she loved the goddess. And so her poetry was lost, but a lot of it has been reformed, and it was poetry that was meant as a prayer to the beloved, to the goddess. So I just read the first part of quite a long poem. It says, the wind of love enters through my window. O Aphrodite, you come to me tonight when I am alone, no one to know you through, no one to touch you, so I can hear you moan, "Come back tomorrow, can't you? Come back when I have within my range of touch the one I love." And like a mountain wind, my love chopping the hardwood of my being, making it into heartwood once again. And so I love this poem because what she says is, as we touch each other, as we make love to one another, it's our way of knowing the divine, of knowing ourselves as divine, of meeting Aphrodite. And that we do not control when Aphrodite comes to visit us. That is up to the grace of the moment when we are so blessed by that visitation. So yeah, I'm curious if you have any questions or thoughts. You all stand. Yeah.
My main question is really how to work with sexual energy you're feeling, because I can be very aware of it, that this is what I'm feeling, but I don't really know how to actually channel that and actually, use it for something beyond sex, maybe something else in my life. Because as far as I understand, sexual energy doesn't just need to be directed towards sex, it can be directed towards anything. So how do you not control it, but just channel it or direct it and maintain it beyond that moment?
So in the Taoist path, they give a lot of instruction around that kind of impulse. Where I come from, I'm much more interested in learning how to surrender to the essence of the sexual energy itself, so it can direct me. Yeah, it's like you can sit in either direction. There's energy, and I can believe I'm the master of this energy that gives birth to stars and want to do something with it. Or I can say, "Beloved, why have you graced me?" And create like a deep body dialogue, not a mental one. So it's a bit like when you make love to a woman and you follow her sound and you feel her enjoyment, and her body and her sound guides you into making love to her, and you listen to that. And somehow you just know how to listen to that as a man. You know. And that's through living it, doing it. Maybe you didn't know in the beginning of your journey, but now you know. So it's not so much how can I even direct her. It's how much space can I make for her to drop deep into her delight, and how can her delight guide me to drop her even deeper into her delight. And it's the same with sexual energy. It's like, how can I listen to it? Really listen, because it knows why it's there for you. So I have I prefer that way because for me it's more relaxing. Yeah, maybe it's more feminine. It might be a more feminine way. A male mind might have a different way.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Recently, I've become quite interested in a lot of this trend of people to get into what they call bondage. Mm-hmm. And with the popularization through like books like 50 Shades of Grey and all of those things, and I really try to understand why is it that especially women cannot experience pleasure unless they are actually tied up and do not have a choice, that they have to enjoy it. So it's very, I'm busy producing a song related to that, but very, very interesting topic, and says a lot about where women are at, and what they feel guilty and they cannot express freely without being actually tied up, and they do not have a choice. Your thoughts?
You bring a topic in which is really beautiful, which is the exploration of our Eros, or there's different ways to describe Eros, but in this moment, Eros means it's an unconscious aspect of how we love. So there's many answers to your question. I'll give you an offsides one. Let's say the last time you really, really felt loved and adored was when you were a little baby girl and you were tightly swaddled. And you couldn't move.
Yes.
And your mom and dad just adored you.
Yes.
And now when you feel tightly swaddled like that
Yeah.
again, you feel love.
Interesting.
That's not really where you're going, is into that the surrender the women long for, or the permission they need to be able to really enjoy sex. That's a slightly different conditioning we're looking at.
An interesting take, that one. Never thought about that.
But there's many different ways to approach Eros. And the thing is, when you really find that love that you've denied yourself or that you can't access from the childhood or something, when you really find it, when it returns to your body, it's no longer unconscious, the Eros will drop away. You'll be less interested in it. You can still enjoy it, but you won't have the same heat. I've got to be bound to enjoy sex. It won't be as hot for you anymore. The heat will have gone.
Yes.
And that, in the way of Tantra, sometimes it should come with a bit of a warning that some of your Eros that you've had before is not going to be hot for you. When you've really gone to the deep conscious, brought the unconscious into the conscious, and you've reclaimed that love back into your body.
Sure.
And then we start, once we've gone through all of our Eros, we just respond to the will, to our bodies, to the energy. So there's many answers to that question. Depending on the person, one would have to be in the moment. Yeah.
That's true.
One last question?
No, go for it.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
I've been reading a lot about yoni massage.
Mm.
And can you elaborate more on that?
Yoni massage.
Yeah.
It's I think maybe one of the most beautiful things for women to experience, when the giver really knows how to give it, when the giver really knows how to listen to the yoni. So for both the giver and the receiver, it's profound, because it can really teach. Let's just say it can be woman and woman, which is really beautiful as well. Let's say man and woman. For a man to learn about yoni massage, he's going to learn how to deeply hear the feminine. And when he can hear it in the woman's body, he can hear it in his body too. So it's almost evolutionary, yoni massage. And for me, it's not really massage. It can be very much, it can help with trauma, with wounding, with bliss. It can release profound, this thing called ambrosia, which is the nectar of the yoni. So it can be healing on a bunch of levels. Just somebody who's really willing to be so deeply present with your sexuality and offer such a devotional gift of love. Just that, just someone to sit with you, offer that devotion and acceptance, embrace you so intimately with such presence, can, just in that one session, can heal so much that a woman could be carrying around her sexuality, shame, guilt, and all kinds of things. But there are, definitely there's yoni massages and there's better yoni massages. I don't mean that as comparison or in any way degrading. It's just, it can take a really deep awareness to really find what this yoni is asking for in this moment. I love it. I love it as a practice of awareness. Yeah. Are we done? Anyone?
Any more questions, guys?
Oh, can I make some announcements quickly? Remember. So in December, I'm putting an event called Sex Talks together. And I want it to be for quite a wide audience, not just seekers. And I'm doing it because I kind of want to ping their sexual energy and let this conversation start to get stronger in our city. I feel it can be very good even for economy and flow and bringing some energy into the city. So that's in the beginning of December if you want to join us. I think it's it feels like a lot of good teachers are coming together to give a lot of really beautiful talks on a bunch of levels. So that's December, and I'm starting a series called The Holy Lover, which is about really dropping into the profundity of being a true lover. And it's always at a pace that suits the group, and it can just also be breathing and moving with the cosmos and connecting to your spine and things like this, and then we see where the group wants to go with it. But I just feel at this point in my life I'm in devotion to the Holy Lover, and I want to offer this work to whomever feels drawn to it. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you.
We should now move into the practical section of this evening. All right, so everyone, welcome to Keys all the way from Brazil.
My dad taught me that. But he'd go with training, just like, so boring. Well, it's not so boring, it's interesting, but it suits me better.
It's a mating call, that's what it is.
Well, first I was a clown for 35 years, so I still play a lot. Then I went to theater, to do theater for children. So I graduated in Brazil and spent a year in London, like apprenticeship at the Polka and the Unicorn Theaters. Then I went back to Brazil, got married, got separated, and went to the US to do theater, TV, movies. And then I met plants. And then I took a master's in spiritual psychology because of the plants. So it really changed my life. And it's been, it's 92 plus. It brought me to South Africa, the plants, Ayahuasca. And brought me to what I love doing now, which is crying. Now I get emotion when I talk about what I love, and I really love what I do. And it's a point where, I've been prepared to do this, and I feel great about it. And how can I say? Because of ayahuasca, I went to study psychology, and that led me to a church where we had rooms, but sometimes we broke. And then after, how many years is that in the church? 92 till now. So we started seeing that the rules were not so good. So it's important that we refrain from sex sometimes to raise to another energy, but not all the time. You cannot kill your sexuality like that. You cannot, and I went, and years ago, I'm now 20 years together with my wife, but that was 5 years into marriage. And I went to the big Padre Alfredo, the biggest in our church, the really holy guy. He has 3 wives, but he's a holy guy. And I went to him and said, hey, okay, the before is fine, but when you have the diamond, the ayahuasca, and then you're not supposed to have sex later, but man, it's tough. It's really tough because it's the instinctual part of me that it gets raised up by ayahuasca. So, and he got a hymn out of that talk. That's how we learn the spiritual knowledge in our doctrine in our religion, the Santo Daime, is through songs. And he got a song like saying, spiritual, the spirit is elevated, but the matter is spirit also. So, more of like go with the flow. That's what he told me. Hey, surrender to it. And don't feel guilty about it. That's the way it goes. That's what you teach. And we went to a session with her last March. I was here with Elana. Thank you. It brought us to another level now. We are much more connected. Just one session. So working together, it's fine. And what I came up to do is I trained as a family consolator, and Bert Hellinger, the German guy that came and learned from the Zulus here and created family constellations. But the base is African, is Zulu tradition of inclusion of everything. You tell me about inclusion of your sexuality in your angry part. Yes, we include everything. We say you got raped, and that's a bang, 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 bang. Difficult to swallow, but that is the truth. I'm sorry. You got raped. Thank your raper. Forgive not only, but what happened was supposed to happen. So whatever happened in your life, like your mother didn't want you, she tried an abortion, and you feel still that she doesn't love you, thank her, because that's what you need. That's what you get, so that's what you needed. Now you can move from there with strength. Because when you go like, no, I don't like this shouldn't have happened, you're making yourself weak because of that. Today I saw a video of a guy without legs, and it's a hard competition. You have to climb up, and everybody's running in their feet, and he's running in his hands, no wheelchairs. So this competition is, and one time he got gravel, like a bucket of gravel, and everybody has to carry them, and they're carrying them, and they stop, and the guys carry them without legs. So you make your difficult, your challenge. You make a trampoline for you to fly. Or you just be a victim for all your life.
That's true.
Oh, my dad didn't want me. He spanked me that time. You can. And with the constellations, it's like entering sex. We never know. I never know what's going to happen. I always, wow. Always like that. I'm always raw. I don't know what's going on. Because we are so diverse beings, many things in common, but so diverse. I came to know with this, it's been a while I'm clinicking and going to penitentiaries and work with different people and different subjects. So we open the group and we invite people to come and say it's an open group, whatever theme you want. And you know what? The themes come together. It's usually like that, it's synchronicity. So a person comes, I have a problem with this issue. So she brings up, I'm here to constellate, I'm going to work on my problem. So let's see where it comes from, so that we can disentangle what happened before, probably. We work with the past, we work with the father, mother, grandfather, up to, back to Adam and Eve. There are reports on you going back to a trauma that is further back, you don't know how many generations back. And it's perpetuated, and we disentangle that, so you're free to make your choices. After you welcome everything that was. And that's the biggest teaching. to love, to include everything. First, even the pain, the trauma, the anger, you say, yes, I'm angry. Yes, you say yes to anger. And then you can work with it. And she says, anger is what takes you forward, too. That's true, too. People say, I don't like the imperfection. I don't like the bad things. But bad things, imperfections, is what makes us go forward to perfection. We should all strive to be better people, since we are incarnated now as human beings. That's the path. And plants, tantra, and constellations go well together. But I must tell you that whenever I have a session coming that I'm going to take ayahuasca with the client, I refrain from sex. At least before. Which is easier. See? And if I'm doing a ceremony too, I refrain a little bit. I don't know if it's the way I was, that's me. Well, and I know that it can break that rule too. Right? Because I have to be free. What's more important is the being in the moment. What more than that? But we are all in this moment carrying stuff from the past. And that's what Bert Hellinger saw from the Zulus. They are listening to the ancestors, their connection with the ancestors. So years back I went to Transkei, and there's Dlamini, and Dlamini dances in a ceremony. And he dances, and he told us in an interview later, that he danced the trauma of someone in the room, some ancestor in the room. Sometimes he feels like he's drowning, or he had a bullet, or knives, and he feels that in his dancing. No mind, it's just the sensations. And he knows who it is, and he takes that person and does something to them to clear that out. First, he dances out that energy, so that energy is not entangled with the person. So he liberates the person through his dancing. And this is family constellation in a different way. This field, this union that we are all part of, is constantly giving information. And if we open ourselves to that, information, deep information, will come. For instance, you never knew that your father wasn't your father. You had a hint, but this is a true story from a professor of mine, a constellator. He was 50, psychiatrist already, and he had that feeling once he was adolescent, and then gave up. But then, like 20 years ago, he went to a constellation. He was coming to Brazil 20 years ago. And his representative told the representative of his father, I don't see you as my father. And that rose up the memories of he had as a child, thinking that, but then he blocked it. It was hard for him, but he went to his mom, who was still alive. And once she opened the door, she told him, I got something to tell you. Mm-hmm. It opened. The entanglement wasn't there anymore. The secret was revealed through someone that didn't know anything about that. And that's what happens in the group constellations. Once you represent someone, you get into their field, we call morphogenetic field, from the biology the term comes. And you experience the dynamics, and through putting representatives up, we can see where the candidiasis came from, or the runny nose, like I was healed from, or the cancer, or your difficulties with your daughter, or with your love. They are all rooted in the past. Probably. Most of us are. So we go there. And we can use people to represent other people, like a man can represent a woman. Doesn't matter. But we also work with horses. And they work beautiful. They step into the field and they show what is needed to be shown. And we just need to, like the hibiscus flower, which I drank today from my tea. I said, hibiscus. Being able to read the horses is amazing. And being able to read the little figures. Sometimes we don't need other people to work with. Some people are ashamed of some things, so they don't want to express out in the group. So we have private sessions too, where I can pick up my little puppets and feel them and see where it comes from and see if it resonates. Like I said, it's always a new experience. It's always. So I was trained in spiritual psychology to go to my higher self and get a message there somehow to help my client get to his higher self. That's how I was instructed. And that's what we do in the constellation. The facilitators, and here we have 3 students right now, 4, taking the course I give here in South Africa, training shamanic constellators. So we work with the drums, we work with the sangoma. I'm also initiated. I'm on Hulukemo, Hululeko, Gogo Sebastian. I just was initiated in October again, and it was 2007. Come, we might have a group tomorrow, and we might have a sweat lodge, shamanic practice. Have you ever heard of sweat lodge? It's the sacred sauna. And all of this is to bring love, or else let love flow. My understanding is like sex. Love wants to love through me, like sex wants to experience itself through me. And that's what we are here for, to open up with plants, with sweats, and with representations, to see how we can be freer, to make our own choices, to be adults, really. We have to honor that child part. We have to have that synchronicity of the 3 brains, of the logical, the heart, and the instinctual, tantra. And reminds me of Claudio Naranjo, which is a great psychiatrist from Chile, and he spread out the Enneagram that you're taking, the psycho Enneagram. Have you heard of that too?
Yes.
Yes? Good. So he brings people to Brazil to drink ayahuasca because that brings up your instinctual mind, your child mind, your sexual mind into place and can balance out what our society has been doing with us for centuries, millennia. The patriarchal mind, where we put emphasis into the logic, into the sequential, Descartes, like Newton, the laws of logic. So in our society we pay too much attention to what's your mind. So the mind blocks. What we want is a free flow of energy, a free instinct, a free emotion, a free mind. Not one controlling the other. but the interconnectedness of these three brains. And that's what we try to bring with these medicines. So you're welcome. I think we have in the Facebook, we have a few events there.
Yeah, it's in Plant People, it's in the newsletter.
You're all from Plant
I'm
People.
going to put my number here.
There
Yes,
you go. That's the best.
If anyone wants to come tomorrow, then just phone.
And
We'll book you. And it's
I'll be
nice.
here for this weekend, and then I'll come back in the end of October because I have a bigger group in Cape Town, so I'll be working there, Cape Town for 2 weeks with me, 3. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you. And what we'd like to do is just to end off, we'd like to ask Mimi to come up and just give us one last poem. It does have a PG rating. Thankfully though, if you don't understand Afrikaans, you should be good. But for the rest of you,
Should I do an Africa? I don't know.
no, do it.
Got some,
No, do it.
because it's,
Do it.
you won't be able to understand. I really
We
need
can give him a
you.
translation.
Afrikaans.
We'll give him a try. I think you'll get the gist with the
I'm going to do
the hand.
something else. Not my Boda. I've got a poem called My Boda, which
It's
is
about her bum.
celebration because white women in South Africa really don't like their own bums. I can promise you. They feel self-conscious about it. They're always hiding it. Is that true? Huh? Are you always like, don't want to show your bum, don't want to wiggle your bum? No. But this poem is about that. But I'll do it, but I've got another poem as well for that you'll maybe enjoy. My bode is die Afrika landskap wat jy liefhet. My bode is die begin van my golf wat jou uitlok om my te verken. Al my klowe en dale en geheime poele nektar. My bode is die begin van die vuur van jou passie om die onbekende te verken en te bewoon. Hoe kan 'n mens anders Afrika besit as om haar te proe, te verken, haar hart te wen, jou hande en oë oor haar kurwes te gly, haar te vry, te verlei en te brei? Hoe kan 'n mens anders Afrika besit as om jou saad in haar te plant en te hoop iets van jou groei binne in haar en word bome en blomme en kinders wat sy koester in haar vrugtbare holtes en moederlik veilige nessies en klowe. My boude en jou hande. Die oererotiese spel tussen die paradys en die verkende reisiger se honger na 'n nuwe landskap, 'n nuwe spel, nuwe klowe, nuwe riviere, nuwe vrugte, smake, vure. My boude is die Afrika landskap wat jy liefhet. En my boude word 'n skinkbord vir jou. En my boude word die land waarmee ons 'n nuwe aarde bou.
And he translated. But I just want to say that we went to visit Credo Mutua a few years ago. Credo Mutua.
Yes.
And we were there in his altar thing.
Yes.
And he told us the story of how he loves his wife's butt.
Yes!
He told us that her butt helped her find the wheel of water. Her butt is like huge. And he tells us that it's very important, those huge butts, because they can't find water. And that's how she did it. And she tells the story. Yes, she walked around the property, they didn't have anything. And she said, this is here where the water comes from.
Just there.
And they dig, and a community was built around that butt.
I love it. And I just want to end with a short poem that's, okay. I am a reborn African child, black and white, no divide, masculine and feminine combined, in Shiva meets Shakti divine. I have become one mind, one soul, one miracle. I have jumped the great divide between myself and I, And I survived, and I am alive!